live! Oh, welcome to another edition of RockSim Live. This is where we talk about your questions about RockSim. My name is Tim Van Milligan. You can see on my shirt it says Tim. This is so I don't forget who I am. This is about using the RockSim software. We got RockSim, RockSim Pro, and the Launch Visualizer. So if you have any questions on how to use that, go ahead and put them in the comments and we'll answer them as best as we can. Over here I have a monitor that I'm looking at, checking the chats, seeing what's going on. Wow, we got lots of people coming in already. We have 3D printer guy from the UK. We have Fat Bank. We have Terry Wheelock and 10-Minute Vacations, who has just got done flying his Saturn V Skylab kit. Cool. We have a rocket launch tomorrow, but it's raining today and they expect it to go on through tomorrow morning. So our launch is canceled for tomorrow, so I am envious. But we'll launch some today here in RockSim, so we'll get that bug out of our system. Okay, so let's get into the questions. We have Carlos from Marietta, Georgia, and he wrote the first question, and he actually emailed it to me. And let me see if I can bring this up. Okay, so he sent this design and he wanted my opinion on it. And as you can see, it looks like a big rocket with little fins, but actually it's a little rocket with tiny fins. You can see the diameter here is 0.5433 inches in diameter, so that's kind of like really tiny. And what he was wondering was, is this a good design with these little tiny fins? And that's a hard question to ask, but we can take a look at it. But first we want to load a rocket engine in here. And first of all, what I'll do is I'll go over here to the Flight Simulations tab. I'll click on that and see what other motors he's got listed in here so far. So he's got an A34T. And let's load that engine into this rocket, because what I want to look at is where the center of gravity is in relation to the center of pressure. For a rocket to be stable, the center of gravity must be forward towards the nose than the center of pressure. And you need to put the rocket engine in, because if you don't have enough weight in the back. So we want to see how far back this center of gravity will move. So to load an engine, you click over here. This little icon is prepare for launch, and if you hover over it, it'll say prepare for launch. And I'll click on that, and it will bring up this screen, and it shows the back end of the rocket, and down here it will list the engine tubes that you can put an engine in. If there's more than one engine tube, they'll be listed down here as well. So I'm going to select it and then choose engine, and we get a list of rocket engines, and it's showing all manufacturers, and it will show only those engines that match the motor mount diameter. So it's only showing those engines that will fit into this rocket. And I'm going to say the A3, and we'll make it a 6. Estes is coming out with an A3-6T. Because the reason for that is the World Space Modeling Championships are going to happen in Texas next summer, and they need that motor. And so they've already announced that they're going to be making it. They used to have it in the past, and now they're bringing it back, which is a nice thing. So now we have to worry about the engine overhang. The engine overhang is on the back end of the rocket. How far does the engine stick out the back? I'm going to say you want to move it as far back as you think it's going to be, because that will move the center of gravity back. So let's try 0.375 inches. So 375 is a little less than 1/2 of an inch. And I'll click OK. And you can see in the back here, on the screen back here, it has actually loaded the engine in, and I want to just take a look at it. Okay, so now this is bad. We got the center of gravity behind the center of pressure. So what we can do is maybe move that overhang, move it a little bit. See, this is his engine block right here. So apparently he wanted it further forward. So let's try 0.25, hit tab, and that's closer. So we can move it a little bit more. Let's go 0.21, 20. Let's try. Okay, so that's where it's hanging out, but it's still behind the center of pressure. This is not good. So I would say my immediate reaction is, if you're not seeing it as being stable, and you'll see it down here, it says unstable, and that's because the center of gravity is behind the center of pressure. That's probably not a good idea with such small fins. Let's go ahead and launch it anyway and see what happens. So let's take a look at what we have this set up as. So we have a 36-inch launch rod pointed straight up, and I have 8-mile-an-hour wind. I can see that wind right here. It says custom speed range, low wind speed of 8, high wind speed of 8, which means it's always coming at 8 miles an hour. And on my screen, it's going to come from the left, going across to the right. So let's do the flight profile. What that will do, that will launch the rocket, and at the same time bring up an animation of what the flight will look like. So it's loaded the launch, and you can see this is the rocket down here. I know it's hard to see. There's the rocket down here, and it's pointed straight up. These black lines here are the weathercocking cone. We want to see the apogee point within that cone. And we do have numbers going out here, so that's a good indication that the rocket did, well, it could have gone sideways, but the rocket did do something. So let's see what it does by launching it. So I'll click launch, and we'll see the rocket take off. Yeah, you see the rocket is tumbling. Yeah, that's not good. Okay, and then the streamer comes out, and then it lands. That's like, first of all, we want to see the apogee point inside the cone. So the apogee point was somewhere around right there. So we weathercocked too much. Well, it's actually pushed with the wind. Weathercocking goes into the wind. So this is not a good thing. And then the second question he had was, he's seeing like a green umbrella coming out of the rocket. And I don't know if you can just see it. Let me slow it down here and bring it back, and I'll show you that green umbrella. You can see it right here. See that? So what is that? Well, that means that you have the force vectors turned on. And the force vectors, there's 2 force vectors and that green arrow. And the green arrow has a special meaning. The one force vector is thrust, because that's a force, and the other one is drag. So thrust will be up along the axis of the rocket. Drag is going to be opposite the direction of travel. And we can see that. Let me bring it back down here to where it's just coming off the launch pad. I'm not seeing either thrust or drag. We're well, so you got some arrows popping off, and then you got this like an umbrella. So that's a pitch moment. So that's the rocket. There's a force causing it to rotate, and you can turn those on and off in the preferences, which is down here, which you can't see. Here's the preferences right down here. Are we seeing the whole screen? I'm not seeing my whole screen. Let me move this up a little bit. There's the preferences button. So click on that, and then go here to vector overlay. And this is where you can see them. See the torque vector is the green one. We got drag is also green, so we should probably have a couple of different colors so that we can see them easier. We don't want to go, let's go pink. So pink for drag, thrust is red, gravity is kind of a yellowish, wind is blue. Some of these don't show up at all. We had planned on them showing, but they don't. As you saw the window, my image in the background has kind of shifted, and that's controlled on the flight screen right here. I can uncheck some of these boxes right here, and I can scale the image to fit the screen and click OK, and it will redraw it, and so now it looks, you know, now I got my trees along the ground again. And there's the rocket, and if I move it forward, see now I have turned, so there they are. So we got a red, remember, we have red, which is thrust. The pink, which is this one here, is the drag. Drag is, like I said, is in the opposite the direction of travel. So if the drag arrow is pointed down, that means my direction of travel is going up. Thrust should be along the axis there, but I think it's, you know, it's just kind of behind a little bit. And then we have the green torque vector. So that shows you the thrust and the drag. You can see that drag is following it down. And then once we're under parachute or streamer right there, basically they go away because now everything balances, all of our forces balance. Okay, so that answers two questions. One was, is this a, what do I think of this design? I think it's unstable and it needs to be fixed. And the other one was, what are those green like parachutes that you see in the 2D flight profile? And those are force vectors. So to fix this design, there's two ways you can do it. Basically, you have to get the center of gravity ahead of the center of pressure. So, well, actually, there's a number of ways. One is you can add nose weight. You know, put more mass in the front, and that's going to move that center of gravity forward. Number two, which is my preferred method, is make the rocket longer. By making it longer, it's the same as adding nose weight, but it's actually lighter than adding nose weight. So if you want to save weight, make the rocket longer. And then the third way is make the fins bigger, or move them back, further back from the nose. Or you can sweep them back as well. These are elliptical, so these are kind of hard to sweep. If they were like trapezoids, I could show you. Let me show you what that would mean. So I'm going to go to the rocket design components. We're going to start modifying this rocket, make it stable. So he's got a fin set, and right now he's got it as an elliptical. So if I edit this, you can see the shape right here is elliptical. So I'm going to change this to trapezoid. And you can see now they're trapezoid shape, and now they're actually swept back. And when I did that, you'll see that the center of gravity actually shifted a little bit forward. Let me switch it back to elliptical. Watch that center of gravity symbol and the center of pressure. See right now, it's the distance between them. The center of gravity is 3.33. This is 3.17. Now it's 3.37, so the center of gravity actually moved back. That's because the fins are swept back, but the center of pressure also moved back, which is good. We want that center of pressure as far back as we can. So let me switch it back to elliptical. Watch that CP number there, 3.17, and then 3.29. So it went back, and you know, if I sweep them even further back, watch that center of gravity, or the center of pressure, the red one right here, it's going to go further and further back if I sweep it. It is moving back, but the center of gravity is also moving back even faster. So that's not going to fix it in this case. So let's go back here. Let's make the root a little bit longer. So I'm going to take that root. Okay, we'll make it like about there. Let me turn off my email since that's popping up. Quit mail. Okay, so tip cord 0.5. Let's make the tip cord 0.54. Okay, so now let's sweep angle or the length. Whoa, what happened there? Sweep length. Okay, so I can sweep it back a little bit. That will help. Now, if I make these fins bigger, make the semi-span right here, take that. Look at that, just by moving that semi-span, just making them wider out into the airstream, you know, getting them away from the tube, it makes them more effective, and it really moved my center of pressure way back. Just a little bit, and click OK. You know, and that basically cured our problem right there. And then if we launch it again, let's go back here, prepare for flight, and just hit flight profile, and that will run the simulation and then show us the 2D flight profile. So here's the rocket. Look at, remember our distances before along the base was around 200 feet way out. Well, now we're at 1,600 feet. That tells me that this rocket's going to go really high. See what, nice and straight. It's taking off. It's wobbling a little bit right there. That's okay. It still went pretty high. We're at 1,100 feet right now, and now it's drifting down to the ground. Yeah, and it lands 1,146 feet away. So, pretty easy to correct stability problems. There was 4 ways, you know, add more nose weight, make the tube longer, move the fins, you know, make the semi-span greater, make them bigger, basically, and then sweep those fins aft so that they kind of like streamlined look, and that will correct stability problems. Okay. What other questions we have? Tim is the man of knowledge, says 3D printer guy. Okay, thank you. Fatbank asks, how do you import a vendor's parts database into RockSim? Okay, well, first off, last week, let me get a sip of water here. Last week we talked about a new version of RockSim coming out. And I am happy to announce that we did release a beta version. It's not the official version yet, but if you download it, it will be the latest version, and it's version 10.4. Last week we were on 10.3. And that has some new stuff in it, and one of them is we made the databases a little, excuse me, a little bit easier to manipulate. So to get to the databases, the parts databases, you go here to Rocket menu and then Edit Database, and then like on Materials, if I go to Materials, it brings up the new the editor for the materials. Now this screen is now, in the past it was you couldn't sort things. Now we can sort things easier. So I can go here to like the part name, and then I get this little arrow when I click on the column, you know, and it just resorts by, you know, alphabetical. To edit things though, you have to click on the item. Like if I want to edit the spruce, first you have to highlight it. This is new. And then you click edit. And then you can get these drop-down menus and little check boxes that you can click. So this will make editing your databases a lot easier and a lot faster. Before, it took a long time for this database to load because there's so much information and it was trying to sort it as it was loading. With the new editor, it goes a lot faster. So you're going to like that. But that's for materials. Let's see, in parts, if you go to parts, edit databases, parts, like now you have to select which part you want to edit. So if I want to edit body tubes, I'd come here to body tubes. Yeah, and I can, you know, this is an Apogee body tube, part number 10100. It's 24 millimeter diameter. You know, and then again, you can edit this, you know, can change the dimensions, inches, or whatever. So if you're editing parts one at a time, that's pretty easy. When you're done editing, you can hit done. If you want to add a new part, right down here is an add new, and it will add a new line here at the bottom where you can type in all your information, which is pretty easy to do. Yeah, but you're going to need some dimensions and weights. That's the downside. So what FatBanks asks is, where can I download parts databases? So we need to go to the internet to find a parts database. Let's see, who might have one? FatBank, do you know who has a parts database that you're trying to import? And while he's typing that in, and there's going to be a time delay because it's like a 60-second time delay before what comes out of my mouth gets out into the world, and then an answer has to come back. So while he is typing in something, 3D printer guy says, also, do you believe that aliens are out there or some life form? And I think I do. I think I've met some. If you look in the mirror, you might see some. Oh, sorry. I think there's aliens out there, and it's just a matter of time before we discover them. It might be, single cell stuff. Who knows? That would count as life form, right? A single cell. Terry Whitlock says, what is the ideal CGCP number? 1, 1.5, 2.0? That's a good question. I don't think, see, like this right here, this one has, what he's talking about is this number right here, the margin. The margin is the distance between the center of gravity and the center of pressure divided by the diameter of the rocket, and that makes it a dimensionless number. And so his question is, what's the ideal number for the margin? And it's a hard question to answer. Theoretically, if the center of gravity is in front of the center of pressure, even by a minuscule amount, the rocket will be stable. The problem is, we could figure out the center of gravity pretty easy because we can just balance the rocket. You balance it, where it balances is the center of gravity. The center of pressure, that's a little bit harder to figure out. And it changes in flight. And because it can shift, it changes with speed, and it changes particularly with angle of attack of the rocket. So if you have wind coming this way and the rocket's going straight up, it's flying at an angle of attack, because if it was at zero of angle of attack, it would be going into the wind. So anything that's not straight into the wind means that the rocket's flying at an angle of attack. And when it's flying at an angle of attack, that center of pressure changes pretty dramatically. Relatively dramatically. And so because we don't know exactly where it is at any given time, we don't want that center of pressure shifting forward of the center of gravity. And because of that, and because it's hard to figure out exactly where it is, we like to have a margin of safety, and that's what this is. It's margin of safety of 0.95. Typically, you know, if it was a brand new Rocketeer, I would say have at least 1.0. If the number is greater than that, fine, that's okay. I can live with that. It's not a bad thing to be greater than 1. The downside is that the rocket is going to weathercock into the wind. It's going to turn into the wind faster. And instead of going up, it's going to be going sideways. I can live with that. That's okay. The rocket is stable, and we can predict the path of the rocket. And as long as, you know, we can predict with a reasonable, good accuracy, I'm okay with that. So any number greater than 1 is fine. Now, any number less than 1, that's where it gets, you know, like this rocket here, we're less than 1. And if we make those fins smaller, like we did, we go here to the rocket design components and we edit the fins, and we make the semi-span smaller, you know, 0.6. Now our margin is 0.78. It probably might still be stable in certain conditions, like low wind conditions. If there's no wind, now we don't have an angle of attack. So now we have a better shot at knowing where that center of pressure is, and it's not shifting around on us. But if there is wind, now, you know, now we have a lot of caveats. And so now I would be more hesitant to recommend that. So basically what you would have to do is characterize your rocket by actually flying it. And so you want to fly it on a day with no wind and not a lot of people around and a lot of space, so that you can, you know, have some room. Because now the margin of safety is not in the rocket's flight being able to predict the path, but the margin of safety is in just a buffer zone around the launch area where there's nothing that's going to get injured or damaged by the rocket. That's our buffer zone. So we're just switching the margin of safety from predictability to wide open space. So, like I said, what is a good center of pressure, or, you know, what is a good margin? I would say, you know, start with 1 if you can. Some rockets, like short stubby things, like the Estes Fat Boy or Big Daddy. We sell the Big Daddy on the Apogee website. So if I go here and type in Big Daddy, here's the Big Daddy, and you'll see, here's a picture of it, and here's a picture of me holding it. It's a relatively short, fat rocket. I can guarantee you that that margin of safety is less than 1, and this rocket still flies fine. Also, look at this rocket. The fins are swept back, and it will have nose weight in it. If I look at the parts here, see if I can pick out. Usually there would be nose weight in something like this, and it's not a bad idea to put in nose. It doesn't look like there's a nose weight package in this, so I guess it's probably okay without nose weight, but to be safe. Okay, see if 3D printer guy has answered the question, or it was Fatbank. He says Giant Leap Rocketry. So let's go to Giant Leap Rocketry. Oops. Oops. Giant Leap Rocketry. Now let's see if we can find a RockSim database. Components. Home, instruction, school orders, tech talk, gift cards. Let's try components. And he says slimline quick lock retainers. Slimline retainers. I am looking for a RockSim database. No tools required. Got these beautiful pictures right here. Instructions? Oh yeah, let's go here. RockSim data. Look at that. RockSim data. These are kits. Click on the following, download it to use in your, okay. So here's download this. So here's some RockSim data files. Okay, so download, click here to download. Do you want to allow downloads? I'll say yes. Okay, they downloaded into my downloads folder. Open downloads. Yeah, it went off on the other screen. So Giant Leap rocketry data, open that up. Okay, so we have these CSV files. Okay, look, these are old, from 2010. Okay, so what do you do with those files? So he's got MO data, which is mass object, launch lug data, centering data, body tube data, bulkhead data, nose cone data, tail cone data, PC data. What's PC? Parachute data. If I recall correctly, it's been a while since I've done this. Let me open up another Finder window. New Finder window. Okay, so I am in RockSim 10.4. So what I want to do is I want to go to my applications folder and then find RockSim 10.4. Here's my 10.4 folder. Let me open that up. Okay, so here's RockSim 10.4 F2. This is the current version that we're on. And there's this folder called Data Import. And it's already got data in here. Let me go to RockSim. Okay, so let me close out of this. And if I go to File, and I can say under the File, Import is Database Files, right here. Okay, and now it's asking merge from path, and right now it's looking in Data Import, and then it's going to merge to a folder called Data. And let me see if I can, if I click on this, okay, so it brings up a browser window. And now I want to go to that data folder that I just downloaded. So that was in my downloads folder right here. Giant Leap rocket data. So this is, I would say, open here, and it's going to merge all that data into this, and I can manufacturer's name filter. Let me put in Giant Leap rocketry. Only import new materials. And I'm going to click OK, but before I do that, I want to look into that folder. I want to find something that's unique so that we can tell where we're successful or not. And these are CSV files. CSV stands for comma something. Basically, they're like a spreadsheet. So if I click on it, it'll open up in a spreadsheet application. And on my computer, it's opening up in numbers, but it might be Excel or something like that. Okay, so I opened the mass object data, and now I can see the manufacturer's Giant Leap, and here's all their stuff like the Slimline 38. Let me bring this up so you can see the bottom. Here's a tail cone, and it has masses right here, units of grams, material, This is all really good stuff. All right, so now we know what's in that folder. So now if we import it, we want to see that, right? All right. Okay, so that's to make sure that it works. So I've selected where it's from and where it's to, and click OK. And it's asking me RockSim database merge, the current database, nose cone data, and the new database. Do you wish to replace? Okay, so there were some Giant Leap components in this database already. And I'm going to say yes to all. So I'm going to load anything, you know, these are Giant Leap's data, so I assume they're correct. And it's going to override all the old Giant Leap data that was already in the database. Okay, so on the materials CSV file, there was no changes. On the body tube data, there was 26 items, but nothing was changed. I'm seeing if there's any changes. Doesn't look like there's any changes. The merge completed without errors. Okay. All right, so let's go up to the rocket. Let's go up to that mass object data. Edit database. I'm not seeing the mass object one. Why don't I have a mass object database? Body tubes, bulkheads, nose cones, parachutes, streamers, tube couplers, fins. Well, let's try something. Let's add a mass object. Oops, cancel. So, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a mass object like this one right here. This object here is a Kevlar thread shock cord mass. So I'm going to add a new one. Let's put it in the nose cone. Mass object. And let's see if there's any Giant Leaps in here. And it's sorted. We need to sort it. There we go. Giant Leap. Any part number. We have a lot of. Here's a Slimline 38. So they're in there. The question I have now is, were they in there to begin with? But they're in there now. So that's all I know, is that they're in there, and that's probably what you wanted. So it was pretty easy to add. Let's cancel this. You just go to File, Import Database Files, and then find where those files are, and then just merge them into the current data folder, and it should take care of it. Let's cross our fingers that it works. Okay, so what do we got here? 3D printer guy says, what's in that water? I take that imitation tea that you find in the little squirt bottles, like water enhancer. That's what's in the bottle. It's fresh. I just did it before I came in here. 3D printer guy says, I'm currently building my second mid-power rocket will fly on a Pro 24 6-grain G84 motor. That's a big motor. So what's he talking about there? So let's go back to the Apogee website, apogeerockets.com, and we're going to type in G84 in the search bar. G84. It requires the 6-grain case. This is not the actual picture of it because it would be a lot longer, because 6-grain is actually longer. This is kind of a generic picture because basically all these reloads look the same. The only difference is the length. But if there's multiple 6-grain motors, they're all going to look the same, so we just take one photo. And it gives you all the information right there. We had a question that came in over the week, is how do you know the liftoff weight of a rocket motor? And it's a really simple answer, and is you just find the motor, like we just found the G84, and here is the total mass. And that total mass not only includes what you see here, but also the rocket engine case, and I'll open it in a new tab here. It also includes that case. So it's this plus this is the total mass, and that's this number right here. And then the propellant mass, all the propellant inside weighs this. So it's, you know, about approximately 95 grams is casing weight. So if we go to the casing, 62 grams. So we have 62 grams of that leftover is the case, and then all this plastic and the bulkhead here at the front and the nozzle on the back is going to be the remainder of the weight of that. So that's how you know the weight of a rocket motor. It's pretty simple. You just find it, and there it is. Fatbank says, look under instructions tab. Okay, yep, that was on the Giant Leap website. D. Doggo writes, I have a rocket. I am thinking about flying one soon. Cool. He sounds like a new Rocketeer. Awesome. Glad to have you. Let's see. Rick DeFossis writes, what does CSV stand for? And it stands for comma separated values. Thank you, Rick. That's awesome. You guys are smart. You're smarter than me. 3D printer guy says on his G84 motor, RockSim said it would go 540 meters. RockSim is a great tool for sure. For sure. Highly recommend it. Awesome. That's good. Did I miss any other questions? That's all the questions we got so far. And there's still a lot of time in this episode. So if you have a question, go ahead and answer it, and I will get to it while we're waiting for more questions to come in. Go ahead and ask your RockSim question, and I'll try to answer it. I'll show you where to get the new version of RockSim. So if you go to the home page, just click on home, and that's apogeerockets.com. If you come down here, it says RockSim has been updated to version 10.4. And there's also another note right here that says RockSim beta version available. And this says beta here, RockSim 10.4. And you click on this, and it will give you the download link. So if you have this download link, you don't even need to give us an email address. Just saying. The Macintosh version of 10.4 is delayed slightly. It's done. The issue we have is it comes from Apple Computer. They have what's called a signature. So it's basically when you download software from the internet, you want to make sure you're downloading it from the place you think you're downloading it from. So if you come to the Apogee website and you download RockSim, you want to make sure that it comes from Apogee. So what we do is we have to sign, there's a digital signature that we sign that Apple Computer recognizes. So when you install software, what Apple computers do, what the Macintosh computer does, is it goes to the Apple website and it has to match up the signature what Apple thinks the signature should be. They should match. And if they do match, it says, okay, this is legitimate software. It's safe to install. And we had a problem creating that uplink to Apple. And we're getting it straightened out. So it will be available soon. But the Windows version is available right now. And there's also an update to RockSim Pro with all the same features that we added to RockSim. And we fixed a bunch of things. On this page, you'll say, why install this beta version? What's changed? And you can see we changed a lot of things. We added 5 new features, and then like about a dozen fixes. So we added a slider bar to make it easier to control textures. So what's a texture? A texture is like a decal on a rocket. So I need to open a rocket that has a texture file to it. Let me go to my designs folder so I can show you this. Habu. If you have a rocket and you see decal files attached, and these are just images like a PNG or a GIF, a JPEG, or a GIF. Those all can be applied to the surface of the rocket, like in the Habu. If I open that, say no. And so here are the decals. You can see the decals are applied to the surfaces. And what we did in the new version is give you more control and make it easier to apply those decals. So let me go to like a fin set, these decals here on the fin. And like zoom in a little bit here. I just want to see the fins. Okay, so the texture files or the decal files are here in textures. And what we added is before there weren't these slider bars. And so we added those slider bars so that you can change things around a lot easier and actually see. It's like designing a rocket. When we move a fin, you just move the slider bar and things change. So I can change the rotation. So watch the decal as I rotate it around. It's kind of spinning that decal. And so if you're trying to get your decal to line up, you can just take this rotation bar, slide it around. Normally, these right here, these little check boxes, these are new also, to flip them around the axes. It's just making it easier to apply the decals. And we've also, there was some issues that we fixed in the decals. That's part of the things that we fixed also. Let's see, what else did we change? Font size control for printing out the simulation tables. So what's that? So if you have a flight simulation and you want to print this out, and if you go to print, I need like multiples of these. So let's just choose another motor. Quest C12. It doesn't matter what it is. I just want something in the table. Launch. Okay, so now I got multiple things in my table, and I want to print this out. So if I go to print, come on, did it? Where'd it go? Is there a window that I'm not hiding? Come on, where's my print window? There it is. I don't want to print out any rocket information. I want to print out simulation information, just the summary screen, which is that one right there. So we kind of changed a lot on this screen here to make it easier to print things out. Things were moved around to make it a little bit more user-friendly. So like I want to do all simulations, and I only want to do the simulation summary table. And I'm going to print this to a PDF so I can show you on the screen. So under additional settings, click on that and make sure it says right here, print to a PDF. So what we changed here, where it says improve font size control for printing out the simulations table, that is right here, the table font size. So if you print it out and it doesn't look right, you can change the font size. So right now, by default, it's set at medium. So I'm going to print it out by hitting OK. And I'm printing to a PDF. So I should be able to just hit print. Okay, so it printed it, and it put it in the applications folder, RockSim 10.4 PDF prints, and it's telling me where it put my file that I just printed. So I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to go to that folder. Okay, and that was in my applications folder, RockSim 10.4, and inside of here there's a folder called PDF prints. So open that, and here's the one that I just printed. So I can open that, and it will open up this screen right here. So this font is medium size, and you can see that it had to wrap text around a lot. And if I don't want it to wrap text that much, I can choose a smaller size. So let's go do that again. Let's go print. I'm going to do again simulation summary, additional settings, and let's change it to extra small. And click OK. And print. And again, it put it in the PDF prints. And let me go to that folder. PDF prints, and this is the new file. You can see now this is the smaller font size, and again it's so that it prints out better on your paper. A lot of people had wanted that, so we added that new feature. Drag and drop for engine edit. One of the things that I like to do a lot is opening a new design. I'll just find the folder, or find the file. So like here's a RockSim file over here on my side that says Star Trooper. Oh, let's see if you can see that. Yeah, you can see that. And you can just drag it into RockSim, and it should just load it. So now Engine Edit used to not do that. So if you had a .eng file and you wanted to edit an Engine Edit file, now you can do that. That's a new feature. I talked about we made it to changes to the printing content selection to make it easier to figure out what you're printing. I told you about the database editor. We changed that to make it easier to edit databases. And then we fixed a lot of things. We resolved a crash issue for the FinSet user interface chamfer tool. So if you had a custom fin in your design, like this is a custom fin, I can tell because it has a curved edge. That's a custom fin. Before, let me do a side view. So here's that fin right there. If I was in the plan points and I tried to chamfer a corner, it would crash. Let's make that 5 points. So we fixed that bug. We fixed texture export in the desktop. And this was an issue, this particular one on textures with the decals, what I'm talking about, had to do with the launch visualizer. So once you created it at RockSim and uploaded it into the cloud, into the launch visualizer, your decals would be correct. For those of you that don't know what the launch visualizer is, that's our online simulator. And there's no software to download for this. You just go to rocksim.com, that URL, and it will load here in just a second. It's taking a little bit longer. There it goes. I got a slow connection here today. This should load blazing fast. And then should load my rocket right here. Come on. While it's doing that, it's still loading little by little. There we go. And this is 3D, and you can see the textures on the rocket. So now we fixed the issue. Sometimes the textures would come in upside down. This is an old file, so this one hasn't been fixed yet, but all that's good stuff. There was a crash when the nose Cone length was set to 0. Oh, you can see there's a lot of things that we fixed. So it's worth downloading it and trying it out. We're going to keep it in beta for a couple weeks. Let users comment on it, and if there's any other changes, then we'll change them. Once we turn it into the official version, what will happen is if you come up here to help, this is a big file. It's taking a long time to load. There's right up here, it says check for updates. Right now, if I selected check for updates, it wouldn't find anything. Because it's in beta mode, we're not saying that there's an update available. You'd have to download the full version. Once we come out of beta, when you'll automatically get a notification saying there's a new update. It's time to download it, and then you can do that update then. But so we're basically testing it with users to see if you uncover any other issues that we need to fix. And I bet you will. Terry Whitlock says, can we make piggyback gliders now? And hold that thought. Let me see if there's any other questions. Johan says, can I get a second free trial version? Sorry, Tim. Thank you for investing in our success right now. I can't invest in the software. We're going to have a free trial version of the launch visualizer. There's 3 versions of the launch visualizer. There's the no login version. There's the login version that gives you a free account. And then there's the premium edition. And so what we're going to be doing soon is we're going to be offering a free, like 30-day trial of the premium version. So you get all the features. Because if you're not logged in, you'll notice that there's a number of things that are locked. And you can't change them unless you're logged in and have a premium account. So once I log in, if I use my login, come on, that should have changed. Oh, I got to log out and then log back in. No, it should be it. It should be, because I just did. Yeah, there we go. See, all those locks that used to be there are gone. And so we're going to offer that, but we're not offering another version of, or another free trial of RockSim. I'm sorry. It just opens up way too many worms, cans of worms. That's a phrase here that says, you open up a can of worms and trying to find an individual worm within the can of worms it's just too hard. Because the reason we do that, we don't want to make exceptions for people, because our philosophy here at Apogee Components is we treat everybody the same. And so if we make an exception for one person, then we have to make an exception for everybody. And it's just too hard to do that. And so we have to say, unfortunately, no, there's not going to be another free trial version. But we are starting a new free trial on the launch visualizer, what you see here. Terry Whitlock says, ooh, I got an Android phone. Is there a RockSim version for that yet? Well, on Android, the RockSim.com will work because it's cloud-based. So you just bring up your phone, bring up a web browser. I assume it's Chrome on the Android. Type in RockSim.com, and now you have full simulation capability right there on your phone. You can't design on your phone. You can't design rockets and manipulate the rockets, like changing the sweep angle. That is something that we're working on for the future, but it's going to be years away because it's such a big job. We've got to make sure that people like this first, using this to launch rockets in running simulations. Okay, so now he had a question. Terry, can we piggyback gliders yet? We kind of talked about this last week. Someone asked, can we do a boost glider in RockSim? And I said, you can't in RockSim, but you might be able to in RockSim Pro, and I'd have to play with it. And so I think I was playing with it. Where's my RockSim Pro? Okay, so here's RockSim Pro. And I did this glider. We looked at it last week, so it looks similar right now. So here's a glider. Let me bring it up in 3D so you can get a look at it. All right, and you can, I can rotate it around. You can see it looks like a glider. It's a boost glider, and it's got a pop pod. And I told you the way it might work is if you set it up as a two-stage rocket. And that's exactly what I did since last week. The booster stage is the glider, and the upper stage is the pop pod. So if I show just the upper stage, come here to this button where I show just single stage, two stage, or three stages. If I change it to single stage, you'll see that the upper stage is just the pod itself. And when we launched this, what we wanted to do was, will a glider actually glide? And I kind of alluded to gliders might glide in RockSim Pro because it's a 6 degree of freedom simulator where you have pitch, yaw, up, down, roll, so you crosswind and downwind. So that's 6 degrees, 6 directions that the rocket could go, orient itself. RockSim is only 3, RockSim Pro is 6. And for gliders, you would need all 6 because gliders will circle. And so once you start circling, you're going crosswind, where RockSim doesn't do crosswind, RockSim Pro does. So I set up a simulation here, and I wanted to fly with an A3-2 motor, and you can see it's loaded in the booster stage. And remember, we just did in the booster stage, it's just the glider itself. So where's the motor? And what I did was created a fake tube. Let me cancel out of this, and I'll show you the fake tube. Here's a fake tube, and if I highlight it, you can see that's where it's located right there. And that's my motor mount for the glider itself. And then all the parts are attached to that fake tube. And then if I go back here, and to make it a 2-stage rocket, I needed something in the upper stage. And so I created a special motor, and I've done this in one of our previous episodes. Let me see if I can find it. So if you go to the Apogee website, where I needed my browser again. Okay, so here's the Apogee website, and you go to the home page. There's 2 ways to get here. One is you just click on this image here that says RockSim Live Training, and the other way is you go to How To and Guides, come down to Software, click on Software, and then come over here to RockSim Live Training. Click on that. It's the same thing as clicking here. Click on that, and this will give you all of our previous episodes. And in one of these episodes, I talked about creating this dart. So how do I find that episode? So instead of using the search bar, because this would search the entire Apogee website, you can just search an individual page. This is one of my favorite tricks. Searching on an individual page, you just do Control F for find, or on the Macintosh it's Command F, and it brings up a search bar, a special search bar at the top, where I can type in a specific word, and I'm going to type in dart, and it didn't find it. Let's type in boosted. How to design a boosted glider. Oh man. Now I don't know what other words can I use for boosted dart. Air start? I don't know. It's not here. Well, anyway, I know I did it, so I had to, yeah. But in one of the episodes, maybe I'll do it again in the future. I'll create that special motor. And the motor is special in that it has a fraction of a weight and fraction of propellant. So basically, it has propellant in there, and it will create thrust, but the thrust is so low, in engineering perspective, it's minuscule. It won't affect anything. And so that's what this special dart motor is. And this dart motor is already in your RockSim. So if you download RockSim now, you'll find it. Maybe not. No, you won't. I created it though. It's under the Apogee. I know I put it into the launch visualizer. Remember the launch visualizer at rocksim.com? I put in a special motor there that was called Dart. It's not in my database. Yeah. Maybe that. So I didn't want my pod, because I wanted all the motor to be in the glider, but it does fall off. Then when I launch it, I'm going to hit the flight profile, and it will bring up the simulation. Okay, and it's going to bring up the desktop version of the launch visualizer, which is this right here, and you see the rocket on the pad. It's still loading. Let me give you a perspective view of this. This is a nice park right here. You got a compass down here, north. Let me swing it around so that north is pointing up. Okay, so here's the rocket right there at that point. Let me switch to trajectory view, and it rotated around again. Oops. I want to zoom in. Okay, so let me... All right, so on the pad, so the rocket on the pad is right here. When it takes off, we're going to watch the booster stage, and we want to see that glide, and then the upper stage has a streamer in it. And if I launch this, the rocket takes off, and you can see it's taking off, it's flying, it's going up, get to there. Okay, so the green part is the pod. This is the pod falling down, and the yellow is the glider. And you can see the glider is doing something. It's look, it's turning right there. Let me pause it. And let me zoom in. I'm zooming in on this point there because that's my glider. And it gets a little twitchy right here. So there's my glider. Whoops, not too far. You can see the glider is gliding around. The problem with this is that the simulation ends when the upper stage hits the ground. And our upper stage is right here. So which is going to hit the ground first? The pop pod down here, or the glider, which is way up there in the sky? And I can tell you, this is going to hit first. Yeah. Oh, at that point, it looked like all of a sudden the glider did a nosedive. and that's because our glider is not trimmed. But we did get the glider doing something. So now it's a matter of changing the pitch angle on the tail to see if we can get that glider to glide. So the question is, can you do a glider in RockSim? No, but you can do it in RockSim Pro, but I would consider it an expert level task, a challenge, because you have to set it up as a two-stage rocket. And I want to play with this some more, because I think what I want to do is have the glider as the upper stage, so that if the pod hits the ground first, the glider will still be in the air, and we can get a better estimate of its trajectory, which would be really cool. Okay, that's all the questions that I've seen. So I guess we've gone over an hour as always. So let me switch screens here. All right, I'm back to normal. So, yeah, that was a lot of cool topics today. You guys asked some really great questions. I appreciate it so much. You're the reason that I'm here. I enjoy being with you. This is the fun part, interacting with customers. We will be back next week, Friday. Next week, Friday, in the United States, is our Memorial Day weekend. I will be here on Friday, but then Memorial Day, which is the following Monday, will be off. So, yes, Friday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time, which is 4 p.m. on the East Coast, which is somewhere like 10 p.m. in the Netherlands, where Johan is watching from. Yeah, that's where to come. So until next week, I'll give you a countdown and let's go out and do a launch. So in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go out and launch something.